Mental health challenges heightened by the COVID-19 pandemic are being felt across the country. Amid this, the Coaching Association of Canada is launching a national mental health and sport project. It is funded by the Public Health Agency of Canada, and it aims to support the mental health of those most impacted by COVID-19 through a host of free, broadly accessible new mental health resources. Joining me to discuss the unique challenges athletes and coaches face when it comes to their mental health is McKeever. He is the head coach of Canada's cross-country ski team and a 12-year coach of Canada's decorated para-Nordic team. Robin, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thanks for having me.
So the COVID-19 pandemic obviously impacted a lot of people's way of living. Tell me, how did it affect your sport?
Well, for sure, it impacted everybody's way of living. And sport is, just another bystander of all of that. But in some ways, our sport was maybe blessed by it as well, because we're an outdoor sport and getting outdoors was something that everybody could do, especially in Canada. There were some places that were completely locked down, but that was what people were leaning towards for mental health. But as far as like organizing high performance sport and trying to get to the Beijing Paralympics, as we were trying to do, the challenges were immense. And I always felt like I was canceling more than I was planning. And every time you plan one step, something got canceled. And then we're trying to just scramble to, basically do our job, which is to get athletes to a state where they can perform at their absolute best.
So what are some of the challenges that athletes and coaches face when it comes to their mental health?
Well, I think it was more around just the anxiety of what could or couldn't happen. They were always in a state of flux, not knowing, how we would go through this pandemic with that. Already the Olympics or Paralympics is such a massive pressure cooker of, trying to compete at your very best, that having this underlying space on top, that with it being in Beijing in 2022, which, politically we have some real issues between, Beijing and Canada with all in the politics these days. So those heightened pieces all add on to where athletes were afraid of potentially going into Beijing and being stuck with COVID, and the rumors of being in a hospital for like 3 weeks and, not being allowed to leave because of this were immense.
Wow, and uncertainty can cause like anxiety for like many people, and of course, like when the stakes are high, like that just is amplified. So I can't imagine what they must have been feeling at that time. Now, according to the Coaching Association of Canada, we are currently in a state of emergency for child and youth mental health. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I don't think I can't agree more. I believe that it is all out there. I believe that it is a bit of societal pressures on Canadians overall as well, though. We're constantly trying to fix everything and everybody matters, and it's really, really important. And of course, but that always has been the case. So bringing it front and center and making it a really big piece is really, really difficult. But yeah, and at the same time, though, it's so critical, yet I don't know why it's all of a sudden just become front and center. It's always been there.
Now, you have some unique perspectives and lived experience connected to mental health and sport. Do you mind sharing some of that with our viewers?
For sure. Mental health and sport is, they go hand in hand. And in order to perform at the elite level, I think a lot of top athletes are in some ways unbalanced. So we have to catch the right race at the right time at the highest point of unbalanced state. So this also leads to where mental health problems can come from, especially when we have a poor performance or don't perform where we're expected to be. And so these are all extremely important and fine details that we have to have counseling and mental health support around at major Olympics and major games, and having a close relationship with the right people in those areas. So we traveled with a mental performance coach with the para team at all times. We were, blessed in having enough funding to have that support system around us. And we created a good bond for actually over 8 years of working with that same performance coach through Pyeongchang 2018 and Beijing in 2022. So consistency is also very key to all of that.
Wow. Now, there's lots of things people can do to aid their mental health. Some will go paint, some will do painting, others will write or just listen to music. Tell us, how can competing in sports help one's mental health?
Well, for us as a team, for me as an individual sport of paranordic skiing or cross country skiing now, my whole focus is actually creating the team family environment at those major events that everybody feels that they're part of something and that they have their whole family there, their immediate family of, team members to rely and support from. And then we did things like team building exercises with our mental performance coach, such as, breathing techniques, cold weather techniques, a lot of these little things to build trust amongst our team and competitors and staff.
Now let's talk about coaches for a bit. Do they find their role to be taxing on their mental health, or is it therapeutic for them as well?
Yeah, I think overall it's both of those things, but emotionally taxing on mental health. There's highs and lows, like we've talked about all the time. And the biggest way for me personally to work on mental health is to get that close knit feeling of the team around me, the athletes and support network, and know that they are happy with the program. And for me, if I can create happy athletes and a happy staff environment to work in, that helps me feel better about myself and then better about what we're trying to achieve.
And how can coaches be better equipped to promote, prevent, or intervene in a participant's mental health when necessary?
Well, for me, that comes down to making sure that we have close ties with the mental performance coach or, team psychologists that we can rely on. But it's also about building strong relationships with the athletes through good communication and a strong foundation to build off of if these problems arise. And inevitably, in every situation, there will always be these pieces that could come up, and tackling them head on early on becomes a big key as well to preventing a really big downward spiral.
And continuing talking about coaches, how can they be better equipped to promote, prevent, or intervene in a participant's mental health when necessary?
Well, having the good team environment around you, I think it's really important to see these things coming and go, early on. And if we can, there's a really good program with game plan for athletes. There's good financial support and aid to start some therapy. And these are at least some avenues that people need to be aware of. The other piece is we're starting, the Canadian Association of Coaching is starting this whole mental health resources. And we hope that this gets going and is really advantageous for coaches to learn more about proper steps to take, because it's not always obvious on the direction that we can go. And we're trying to create this big safe sport environment for athletes. And these are all the pieces that become critical to doing a better job at supporting the mental health of our athletes in our programs.
Now, switching gears now, Canada's paranordic skiing team just came back from the 2023 Paranordic Skiing World Championships, which were held in Sweden. I hear they flew back heavier with a lot of hardware that the team won and even set some records. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, in May of this year, in sport, high performance sport at Olympic level, Paralympic level, works on 4-year cycles. And after 12 years of being the head coach of that program, I retired and moved to New Challenges, which was the Olympic Stream program, helped set in place a really strong team environment that we worked with, our high performance director, our wax tech staff, and all the athletes. And it paved the way for my brother Brian to take over that program as a technical coach. But with the strength of the athletes and that team behind it and all around it supporting it, they actually did better without me. And that was maybe a big factor in those records that came from this year. So I think that's a product of the environment, strength of your team around you, and that promotes excellence.
And despite being heavyweights in the sport, I hear some of the Canadian athletes managed to pile up some personal bests at the event. Tell us what you've heard.
Well, Natalie Wilkie has always been a strong contender, and she started with that program at 16 years old in 2018. And so I believe that she's just coming into her own now. And so really strong at only, still in her early 20s, still has at least 2 more Paralympics to go. So I think as long as she stays happy and healthy within the sport, she will produce more medals for Canada in both 2026 and 2030.
And talking about you again, you retired from competing in the sport in 2010. Do you ever wish you were back out on the frozen trails to compete again?
There is the odd time, and then I try to chase some athletes around and go hard, and that lasts about 2 minutes because they are in such great shape, and it is really hard work. And so I'm just happy to be a really good support network for them and try to get them as fast as possible.
Robin McKeever is the head coach of Canada's cross-country ski team and a 12-year coach of Canada's decorated para-Nordic team. Robin, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much, Naveen.